Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down Liverpool's 4-1 win over Norwich and identify why the fullbacks were so key to their first half onslaught. But before that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But now, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Liverpool, more of a 4-3-3, Origi, Firmino, and Salah up front. In midfield, than what Jordan, Henderson, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho. Then we get to Norwich, more of a 4-2-3-1. Pukki up front ahead of Stiepermann, Buendia, and Cantwell, and McLean and Tyrrell in midfield. So now let's get to the analysis. Look at why Liverpool were so dominant in that first half and why the fullbacks played a key role. So when we break down Liverpool against Norwich, Liverpool were out of sight within the opening 45 minutes, up 4-0. And when you question how they were able to do that, you look to the fullbacks, because prior to that, the game kind of went as planned. Norwich were looking to press from the front. They had the midfield battle in check. They had Stiepermann stepping to Fabinho. McLean did step to Wijnaldum, and they had Tyrrell to move out to Henderson. The wider players were closing down the fullbacks. And a lot of their play, Liverpool's did have to stem out in the wider zones, whereas Liverpool continued with the same pressing scheme that necessarily didn't work against Manchester City, and they improved it here. Initially, you see the center backs pushing out wide. You have Firmino stepping to the keeper, Origi and Salah stepping to the split center backs, and initially they had Wijnaldum and Henderson pushing out to the fullbacks, but McLean and Tyrrell could drop off deeper to offer ball playing presence and an option for the goalkeeper and any of the center backs. So as the game wore on, we ended up seeing Wijnaldum, Henderson, and we ended up seeing Fabinho step up a bit closer to squeeze that space to ensure that those two midfielders couldn't provide a ball playing option. And as the game, or more so the first half, progressed, Norwich continuously played the ball a bit longer. So when you look at that and you see Liverpool constantly playing through the wider areas, we have to get to how they were able to succeed. And like I said, that was through the fullbacks. And how did that work? Well, what they do have here is balance. You kind of remind you of how Real Madrid were able to, during that 3-year Champions League run, when nothing was going through the midfield, they were able to push Marcelo and Carvajal forward, and they were able to offer you creativity from those wider areas in contrasting manners. Here we saw that from Liverpool. You had Robertson bombing forward, and whenever Robertson bombed forward, which wasn't often, you would often see Trent Alexander-Arnold keep his position. Klopp did not instruct both fullbacks to push forward at ease, and often when Robertson did push forward, it was because Origi was in a narrow position. On the flip side, we saw more from Liverpool down the right-hand side, and that was because Lewis, the left-back for Norwich, was tracking the movement of Salah. So if Salah dropped off a bit narrow, where he often likes to play, Lewis would stick to him, and that would free up more space for Alexander-Arnold to push into the wider areas. And that's kind of how they went about it. If Salah held the wide area, and on the touchline, you would see Trent Alexander-Arnold move into more of a narrow position. But that was kind of how they did work it. And that was a theme of last season, when Salah started to play more narrow and occupy center backs and push fullbacks a bit narrow. When we look at the build-up to most of Liverpool's best chances, a lot of it stemmed through the fullback play. And we saw that in the opening stages of more so down the left-hand side. It was Robertson pushing forward down the left. And he instantly, there was no one tracking him, and that was supposed to be Buendia's job, but he was able to bypass him, slides the ball out to Origi, and that's when Buendia and Aarons do get Origi, and eventually that does lead up to the build-up to the first goal, because it's Origi's cross that hits off the defender and falls into the net, and it did deflect off Hanley. But that was one example where you could see that from Robertson. And 2 minutes later, we see again Robertson breaking down that line, and Stiepermann was supposed to be tracking him because Buendia was out of position. And when no one picks him up and he runs at Aarons, he's able to locate Firmino with a devastating cross into the box, but Firmino was unable to control it. And that is what we saw from Robertson in the first half. In the span of 2 minutes, creating two golden opportunities. The first one a bit fortuitous. The second one, Firmino probably at the least should have got a shot on goal, but you're seeing the fullbacks getting forward, already pushing Norwich back, and that is the key to their play. If the midfield is being shut out, they rely on the fullbacks to win those individual battles, and that was pivotal here. Whereas on the right-hand side, we saw a bit more variation, because you can have Alexander-Arnold playing narrow, because Salah's presence, you need to ensure that both men are shut down, and that wasn't the case here. And we see that in various examples, more so the second second goal where the ball is switched out to Alexander-Arnold to constantly push Cantwell back into more of a wing-back role, because Lewis, when Salah stepped into those positions, did play a bit narrow, and he was almost like a third center back, which allowed Alexander-Arnold to push forward. And with him pushing forward there and Gomez sliding out the ball, you have Salah ahead of Tyrrell and ahead of Lewis right there. The ball is played to him and he tries to beat both. And what happens there is that the ball bounces to Firmino. When it bounces to Firmino ahead of the center backs, Firmino reacts quickly. Salah runs off Lewis, pokes it into him. You have your second goal. As simple as that. But again, that doesn't happen if you don't have Salah's movement narrow, if you don't have Alexander-Arnold pushing forward to provide that width and to stretch the play, which allows Gomez to slide the ball out into that area. And Alexander-Arnold's night continued to progress well from an offensive standpoint because he was able to get into those zones. You look to another chance where all you see here is that the ball wasn't cleared from Robertson, and it ends up falling to Alexander-Arnold in a narrow position, and he's able to pick out Firmino in the box, loop the ball over to him, he chests it down, he volleys it on goal, and that forces a big save from Tim Krul. But the reason why he's able to get that space is because when you have Salah wide and you have Robertson pushing forward, you have the center back stepping up. Here you have Alexander-Arnold in a narrow central role. Cantwell isn't going to step forward to constantly press him because their defensive line is so deep, which allows Alexander-Arnold a few seconds to get on the ball, to locate his marker, and his passing ability is underrated. You could basically play him in central midfield if you wanted to, because he's able to find players in different areas of the pitch in those tight spaces. And that's what he did there. He's able to chip that ball in there to find Firmino, and that was a difference maker. And then we get to the build-up to the fourth goal, and it's something similar. And it also stems from the fact that Alexander-Arnold is in that narrow role. It stems with Henderson sliding the ball out to Salah, where Lewis is, and he drags him out. And then Henderson makes that run in behind Lewis, which forces the center back to fall to him. And when you have Henderson get that ball in that space, he drops it off to Alexander-Arnold, who again is free because you have Cantwell dropping with his midfield line. And once he does that, he's now stepping to Arnold, but a few seconds too late, which allows Arnold to locate the player that he's trying to pick out. And that is Origi running across Aarons and running across Hanley to nod the ball into the net. A very simple goal. The defenders will get the blame for that, but it all stems through the movement down the right-hand side. Salah moving out wide, Henderson making the run in behind him, Alexander-Arnold getting the space from a narrow central position to pick out his pass, because like I said, Robertson pushes forward, and with Origi narrow, he's cutting across. Robertson's forward, Alexander-Arnold holds his position, but even in that narrow position, he's able to make a difference from an offensive standpoint, and that was how Liverpool were able to get the best out of Norwich in that opening 45 minutes. There was one key area that Liverpool fans could worry about, and that was the fact that Pukki was able to make darting runs across the center backs and was getting in free, and along with him and Cantwell, they were making runs in behind Alexander-Arnold, who needs to improve from a defensive aspect in terms of reading the game, in terms of tracking runners, ensuring that runners don't get in behind them. But besides that, Liverpool with the ball were superb. They maximized their opportunities, and they were up 4-0, and everything that happened in the second half doesn't really matter based off the fact that they were up 4 goals and pretty much won the game in the first half due to the variation of their fullbacks' movements. But let me know what you guys think. Will Liverpool win the league this season, and do they possess the best fullback pairing in the world? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.